In this episode, this is for the person who's piecing it together on their own, for the person in survival mode, in recovery, or coming out of a crisis and wondering, is real wealth even possible for me?
When you really think about it, all we are trying to do now as adults is get back to the security and the freedom that we felt as kids. So when we're kids, our parents provide that security and freedom. When we're adults, money provides that security and freedom. So why is it that what worked for our parents didn't work for us today? So you're saving your money towards this goal of the buying the house or whatever it is, building wealth, and the savings is going up by, let's say, put $100 in savings. You're earning less than 1% in interest. So let's say, to be generous, let's call it 1% to make the math easy. So you saved $100 and you feel like you did something great, right? And you earned $1 interest. Yay, I earned interest. Now I have $101. But guess what? Inflation has pushed the price of something that used to cost $100 to $105. The first part of the equation, what we were taught, was work hard plus save equals house and land and eventual wealth, right? But that's not the complete equation. You still have to work hard and save, but you have to multiply the money that you saved by ownership. So real estate takes a lot of money. Entrepreneurship takes a lot of time. Stock market investing does not require a lot of time or a lot of money to get started, which is why I keep preaching that it is the easiest way to build wealth, the easiest way to get started. I was covering these stories. I was reporting on being the #1 stock exchange in the world, but I wasn't investing. And I'm like, why am I reporting on this and watching other people make money and I'm not making money myself?
Right.
And a lot of people get into stock market investing for the quick and easy gain. And the short-term mentality is what gets a lot of people in trouble. That is why they end up falling for the scammers.
What's up, dreamers and doers, and welcome back to the Dope Living Podcast, a conversation platform for ambitious people rewriting the rules of success in a modern world. I'm your host, Janay, and today we're talking about money in a way that doesn't usually make it to the mainstream. It's not about how to get rich. It's about what it really looks like for Caribbean people to build wealth when you didn't inherit a roadmap, a trust fund, or a family financial advisor. My guest today is an award-winning financial journalist and founder of Money Media, Kalilah Reynolds. She's built a platform for financial literacy in the Caribbean, launched the Money Mission Workbook, and teaches investing to people who are often the first in their family to even have this conversation. She's also been on the ground covering the economic fallout of storms like Hurricane Melissa, watching people trying to rebuild from literal and financial rubble. In this episode, this is for the person who's piecing it together on their own, for the person in survival mode, in recovery, or coming out of a crisis and wondering, is real wealth even possible for me? We're going to talk about what's missing from the wealth playbook and how to start changing that one decision at a time. Welcome, Kalilah.
Hi, Janay. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you and hello to your audience.
So I'm so excited to have you, and I'm excited to have this conversation because it's something that I think we go through in our heads every day, if not every few hours. And so where I want to start today, because this is so personal for many of us, is a lot of Caribbean folk did exactly what we were told to do, right? We went to school, we got jobs, we worked hard, we support our families, and yet we don't see it translated into real wealth. And often we know that it starts from us. Like, we have to be the ones to start, building generational wealth. From where you sit, what are the key pieces of the wealth puzzle that our communities often never get handed?
You're so right, Janay. So that was the formula that we were taught, either explicitly or by example from our parents. So we saw that formula work for them. At least for me, I grew up in a two-parent household. My mom and dad married young. My mom married at the age of 19. Dad was about 24, 25. They bought a house in their 20s. And my brother and I, we grew up in that very stable family. I saw my dad go off to university, get a scholarship to go study in England. My mom later studied. She eventually earned her master's. She was principal of her school. Dad worked for the government for a long time before he opened up his business. And I saw these things work for them. I had a really great childhood. I had, I guess, the typical Caribbean childhood growing up in Belize. We used to run up and down the street, climb trees, play catch, ride bicycles, all that good stuff. Eat mangoes fresh off the tree, fly kites, make our own kites from coconut, the stem from the coconut leaf.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really think about it, Jenny, all we are trying to do now as adults is get back to the security and the freedom that we felt as kids. Now, when we were
Mm-hmm.
kids, our parents provided that security and that freedom for us. So we didn't have the level of traffic, at least I didn't have the level of traffic to deal with, getting to and from school as I do now getting my kids to and from school. Times were just completely different. So when we're kids, our parents provide that security and freedom. When we're adults, money provides that security and freedom. And that's all we're ever striving to achieve. So why is it that what worked for our parents didn't work for us today? There are a few reasons. One, the economy has changed completely. I mentioned the traffic. That should tell you more people are driving cars. Things are just different than they
Mm-hmm.
were before. Kids nowadays don't go out and play on the street like we used to when we were kids. My kids now, they have to have an organized play date. Somebody has to be watching them. It's just not the same. So the economy of the 1990s and the 1980s is a lot different than the economy of the 2010s. So I've been here comparing myself to my parents, not realizing that it takes a significantly higher percentage of my income to buy a house or to pay a mortgage than it did for them, because
Right.
house prices went from here to here,
Yeah.
but wages only went from here to here. So the wage inflation hasn't caught up with the house
Right.
price inflation. So whereas it might have taken my parents 20% of their income to pay that mortgage, for us now, when we're looking at the cost of a house and the amount that you're going to be paying in a mortgage, it's actually unattainable for many people. 50%, 70%, it doesn't even make sense
Mm-hmm.
financially to try to pursue that. Secondly, we're getting married a lot later in life. I mentioned my parents, my mom got married at 19, my grandma got married at 17, I got married at 32. And a lot of my friends still aren't married, and we're now in our early 40s. I don't know if they ever will be. But most of my friends who are married got married either in their 30s, their 40s, which means that you have less time to combine an income with a spouse. So we're out here trying to do it on our own.
Mm-hmm.
The wages aren't keeping up with the inflation of houses, and we're still comparing ourselves to where our parents were and saying, why are we a failure, even though our generation is more educated than ever and we're earning technically more than ever, but it's just not keeping up with the reality of the economy today. The cost of living has risen far faster than the cost of those wages. And so we have to learn new strategies, because when we were kids, you might have opened up a child saver account and you're earning a nice 5-6% interest on your children's savings account at the bank. No bank is paying 5-6% interest anymore. That is,
No.
those days are long, long, long gone. The average interest rate in Jamaica here is less than 1%. If you're putting your money in savings only, you are earning 0 point something something percent on interest. Meanwhile, inflation is averaging 5% a year.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you're saving your money towards this goal of the buying the house or to whatever it is, building wealth, and the savings is going up by, let's say, put $100 in savings. You're earning less than 1% in interest. So let's say, to be generous, let's call it 1% to make the math easy. So you saved $100 and you feel like you did something great, right? And you earned $1 interest. Yay, I earned interest. Now I have $101. But guess what? Inflation has pushed the price of something that used to cost $100 to $105. So now
Right.
you earned 100 and you saved 100, you earned $1, you have 101, but the thing that cost 100 costs 105. So now you're $4 in the hole. And that's why I keep telling people that saving alone is not enough, especially in this economy. What worked for our parents' generation does not work for us today. We have to use strategies that are going to help us to beat inflation and to get something more than 5%. And that is actually investing. That's where investing comes in. And in the Caribbean, we never really learn much about investing because we might
Not
say
at
that's,
all.
if anything, that's not accessible to me. Growing up in Belize, we didn't have any stock market. We still don't have a stock market in Belize. But in Jamaica, there's been a stock market since the 60s or 70s. Trinidad has had a stock market for several years. Guyana has had a stock market for several years. Barbados has had a stock market for several years. The Eastern Caribbean even has a stock market. I don't think Bahamas has one. But
We
there are other
we have the
opportunities.
BISAX as well. Yeah.
The BISEX.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need to look into that one. But there are opportunities around the Caribbean that we can take advantage of, just that we were never taught this in school. We were made to believe or led to believe that investing, oh, that's for rich people, not realizing that it actually is how you become wealthy. It is the easiest and cheapest and most convenient step towards wealth creation. Because if you're trying to put all your money into a house, you realize very quickly that it's very expensive to do that. And if you don't have money to begin with, how are you going to get the house? That's the problem.
Exactly.
So
I want to mark that because it's so important because like you said, we are just told to save, right? And that seems, and the way that it's being told to us is that this is going to be the savior. Saving is the savior. And what you're saying today is that it's absolutely not. The strategies have changed. Maybe saving was something that our parents could do, but it's just not our reality today.
right, savings is the first step. So you still need to have something to invest. So you still need to save something. So the first part of the equation, what we were taught, was work hard plus save equals house and land and eventual wealth, right? But that's not the full equation. That's not the complete equation. You still have to work hard and save, but you have to multiply the money that you saved by ownership, by owning things such
Hey,
as
yeah.
stock market investments, property, and businesses. So multiply the money that you work for and you save, watch that grow, and that will then give you wealth and generational wealth at that.
So if someone feels like, I've been working really hard and I still feel like I am at ground zero, more than likely because that equation has been stopping at saving and not now kind of diversifying. A big question that will come out from, especially from when we talk about us being positioned in the Caribbean, is that our access is limited. Can we talk a little bit about ownership and what that really means, breaking down the different elements of ownership?
Ownership is just such an important element. The first one we are taught about that everybody is familiar with is real estate. From time was time, wealth has been measured in terms of how much property you own. If you go to the most remote village in the Amazon or in Africa, the landowners, the chief who owns the land is the wealthy person, or the people who own the land are the wealthy people, right? And there was a time in British colonial history in Jamaica, also in the Bahamas and English speaking Caribbean, where you had to be a property owner to even vote before universal adult suffrage. And so that just goes to show that wealth has always been measured in terms of property ownership. So that's number one, investing in real estate. But like I mentioned, the challenge is real estate is very expensive to invest in. It costs a lot of money to get started. And if you don't have the money to begin with, how do you make that step of investing in real estate? If it requires you to be wealthy to invest in real estate, but you have to be wealthy.
Right.
So you get what I'm saying, right? It's just not enough.
Yeah.
How do we get there?
Mm-hmm.
The second key
Yeah.
of creation is entrepreneurship, building and owning businesses. So when you think about the wealthiest people in the world, you think your Jeff Bezos founded Amazon, Elon Musk founded Tesla and SpaceX and PayPal and multiple businesses. You think of Bill Gates, Microsoft, even Rihanna here in the Caribbean, who global superstar, but she became a billionaire through her businesses, Fenty Beauty, Savage X, all her multiple business lines. So all the wealthiest people are entrepreneurs, and that is one of the best known and probably the most lucrative path to wealth. However, it is also the riskiest and the most time consuming. Not everybody is going to succeed as an entrepreneur. The vast majority of businesses fail within the first 2 years, and a large percentage above that fail within the first 5 years. And then on top of that, it's going to take all of your time. So you can work for 10 years and still not really see a decent return from your business. Or you can work for 10 years and finally see a return after that amount of time. And along the 10 years, you're working 12, 14, 16-hour days on top of that. So real estate takes a lot of money. Entrepreneurship takes a lot of time. Stock market investing does not require a lot of time or a lot of money to get started, which is why I keep preaching that it is the easiest way to build wealth, the easiest way to get started in building wealth. So once you start creating that wealth, once you start multiplying your money, you can then use that to invest in the other two and start building on the pillars of wealth. And it is accessible to us. You mentioned in the Bahamas, you have a stock exchange. Several Caribbean countries have stock exchanges. And if you look on the indices and look at the trading numbers here in Jamaica, the vast majority of stocks listed cost less than 100 Jamaican dollars, which is the exchange rate right now is like 161 to 1 US. So well below 1 US dollar per stock. And that everybody has a dollar to spare, right? Most people have a dollar to spare.
Right. Just that coffee and tea that we go to get can go straight into investing, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. That's change.
Yeah.
That's what we call silver money here.
Exactly. You created the Money Mission workbook and a whole ecosystem around teaching people how to build wealth from the ground up. So we've honestly talked about how the traditional playbook does not, yay, look at it. Yes, there it is. If you were to, let's say, design that playbook for where we should start, can you describe the starting point if we wanted to now get into investing in the stock market, investing in our local stock market, or even trying to tap into the US stock market?
So the starting point is whatever you have when it comes to money. People think that they need to save up a whole lot of money. You need at least 1,000 US, 5,000 US, 10,000 US to start. When that is absolutely false. You can open an investment account with very little money at most firms. Depends on the firm that you go to. They may have different opening requirements. So just start with what you have. If the opening is 100 US, save up your 100 US, open your account. So step one is to open that investment account with whatever money that you have, or save up towards the minimum opening requirements. Once you've opened, you can invest very small amounts at a time if that's all you have. Just start where you are, start with what you have. That's step one. And then step two is to educate yourself, which probably should come before step one. But I still tell people open the account first, even before you know anything, because people tend to drag their foot on opening the account. And I don't want you to miss any opportunities, so that when the opportunities arise, you are already prepared. You already have your account open. Because sometimes, I don't know how it is in the Bahamas, but here in Jamaica, there can be a lot of paperwork involved in
Oh, yeah.
opening any type of bank account or investment account. It can take a while. So just get the process started. But step two, educate yourself. And that's why I created the Money Mission workbook, so that people have a practical guide using Caribbean examples on how you apply this to your life and how you can do this every day.
I love that. I love the Caribbean examples, right? Because I don't think we see enough of that. Can you walk us through some of those examples, or break down what that would look like if anyone positioned from the Caribbean?
A lot of it focuses on Jamaica because I live in Jamaica, and that's where I have the most experience. But I do cover Trinidad, Guyana, Barbados as well to a lesser extent. But a lot of the examples do focus on Jamaica and the experience that Jamaica has had, because it's been a particularly interesting story coming from a very highly indebted country, gone through multiple IMF programs, failed multiple IMF programs over a number of decades, to having an economic turnaround and having the number one performing stock exchange in the world twice in 2015 and 2018, and seeing
Wow.
a lot of people making a whole lot of money on the Jamaica Stock Exchange was what really motivated me to get started. Because at the time, you mentioned I'm a financial journalist, I was covering these stories. I was reporting on being the number one stock exchange in the world, but I wasn't investing. And I'm like, why am I reporting on this and watching other people make money and I'm not making money myself?
Right,
And in the
right.
book, tell the story of, how Jamaica made that transition, why those things came about, what changed in the economy to lend itself to that environment, and where we are now. Now, the book was written before Hurricane Melissa, so it's a different economic reality right
Hmm.
now. You guys have experience with Hurricane Dorian and what that does to your economy as well. So I'm going to
Hmm.
have some updates on that. But the fundamentals for a country like Jamaica are still pretty strong. This country has invested a lot in becoming disaster resilient because we've had decades of experience with storms and hurricanes and different types of climate related risks now. The government had invested in a catastrophe bond, and so there was a very large payout pretty early on. I'm not sure if the payout has been made at the time of recording this, but there is supposed to be, there's a commitment to pay out millions of dollars pretty early on in the response period. And so I think eventually Jamaica will be fine. It will take a couple of years to recover naturally, as you guys know. But
Hmm.
where we are today, it's a good thing that this storm didn't hit 10 years ago, because 10 years ago, it would have been complete. Well, it still is a large disaster, but economically speaking, Melissa would have set this country much, much, much further back if this had hit 10 years ago. It's good that we're in the position we are now, that we're able to at least take those steps to recover a lot more quickly.
Right. And there's something to be said about that preparedness, right? That planning for the future. Can you break down a little bit about how your thought process on that planning process? And, for someone who says, okay, you've convinced me, I'm going to open this brokerage account, I'm going to put my $100 in there. But now we're talking about putting something in there so often and not actually taking it out right away because it's a long game. Can you talk through your within your framework what that looks like to be prepared and plan for the future?
Exactly. I'm glad you went there because a lot of people get into stock market investing for the quick and easy gain. And they think it's gonna be, okay, I put money in today, I get money out next week, and they're in it for flipping. And there was a point in time where that became extremely popular in Jamaica. They called it IPO flipping. So
Mm.
IPOs, initial public offers, are the first time a company lists on a stock exchange. And there was a point in time between, I'd say, 2017 to early 2020, where every IPO that came out, it you were making an immediate return of 100%, 200% within weeks. And so a lot of people, that became very lucrative to a lot of people, and they would just put money in any IPO without doing any research and just say, it must win. And within a few weeks, few months, I'm going to earn my money back times two, times three, until COVID hit and kind of readjusted the market.
Mm.
And things haven't quite been the same on the market since COVID. And it was a hard lesson to a lot of new investors and young investors who had become used to the quick and easy returns, that listen, investing really is for the long haul. It is not designed for short term returns. Yes, there are opportunities to make money in the short term, but when you think about the way that you earn a return on the stock market, traditionally it's because the companies grow, and when the companies grow, the stock becomes more valuable, which sends the stock price up, right? Additionally, companies that are growing, they may pay a dividend. The more they earn, the more profit they earn, the more dividends they pay out. That doesn't happen overnight. A company is not going to grow in 2 to 3 weeks. Companies take years to grow, to see significant growth. And so that's the mindset that you need to have going into your investment. You are investing in a company, and your investment is intended to help this company grow. They're going to use, if it's an IPO, for example, in many instances, they're going to use that money to reinvest in the company. And it's going to take some years before that money is, that money comes back to you before you see a significant return. So think about it that way. Companies grow over time, not overnight. And the short term mentality is what gets a lot of people in trouble. That is why they end up falling for the scammers. And it's so funny that they have a lot of scam accounts, a lot of people impersonating me, especially on TikTok.
Oh,
And
wow.
people will DM me and say, Kalila, did you send me this message about investing in some crypto, whatever, whatever? And I'll say, no, I don't do that type of investment. I don't invest on behalf of other people. I'm a journalist.
Hmm.
I sell information, basically,
Yeah.
not, I don't invest for people. And then they'll say, so I'll tell them, if you want to learn to invest, just buy the book or take the course. That's the easiest way. And they're like, no, I don't have time for that. And they turn around and give this scammer a lot of money,
Oh, yeah.
1,000 US, 2,000 US. I've heard some pretty bigger numbers than that even. And this because the scammer promised them a return in a week, and they end up losing all their money because they didn't want to take the time to invest in their own education. And it really is a shame, but just think about it. Companies grow over time, not overnight. So you have to invest in your education, know what you're getting yourself into, and then be in it for the long haul. Minimum, I would say minimum 5 years.
Right. Well, and let's talk about the concepts around compounding and consistency, right? Someone told me the other day, when you look at a company, for example, that's like they grow 81%, then 0%, then 81%, 0%, you'd be like, okay. And I'm looking at another company over here that's doing like 41% over year, right? And we were having this conversation and kind of doing the math and realizing the company that got 41% year over year did significantly more, you got significantly more returns from that company than a company that was like shooting up, then shooting down, shooting up, shooting down. So let's talk about that so people can kind of get an idea of what you're really looking for, some of those indicators that you're looking for when you want to consider or do your research.
So Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. And he said, he who understands it earns it. He who doesn't understand it pays it.
Ah.
Consistency is key. Now, I'm somebody who I work out a lot. I try to work out every day. I don't always make it every day. But when you have the consistency in the gym, that's when you start seeing the returns versus when you go today, don't go tomorrow, take 2 days off, and then you're back again on Thursday. And then next week, you're tired, you don't go next week, and then you show up again. The inconsistency is going to give you inconsistent results. The consistency now is when you start getting the six pack and you get the thighs and the legs, and for the girls, the booty starts growing and you see the gains, For the guys, it's all, the chest and the upper body. It's all about the
Yeah.
consistency, the little things that you do every day, the habits that you create in your life every single day. And the same thing goes for investing. So the consistency, taking a percentage of your income and putting it aside each month to add to your investments. So you have your investments, you keep it going. Every month, 10% of your income, 5%, 20%, whatever it is that you can afford, take that out, do a salary deduction so that you don't have to look at it. It doesn't hurt, make it painless. Transfer that directly to your investment account at the end of each month. And then at the end of each month, they're going to be reviewing your portfolio, looking at, what was performing well, what was not performing well, what additional purchases you may like to make, how you may want to rebalance your portfolio, maybe sell some stock over here, buy more over the other side. But just doing that consistently, just once a month, taking a couple hours a month to form that habit and to keep it going for years to come. I just opened my kids' investment accounts. They're 5 and 7 years old. And
Oh,
my
wow.
7-year-old is so excited about it because she says, Mommy, by the time I finish high school, I'm going to be a millionaire, right? And I said,
That's right.
at least in Jamaican dollars, you surely will be. But I also have to
That's
remind her because
awesome.
she wants to take out money all the time. And I also have to remind her that no, that's not the objective. You have to give your money time to grow. You have to put it in there and let it do its thing. If you keep taking the money back out, you're not going to see the returns. You're not going to achieve your goal of being a millionaire by the time you finish high school.
Right, right. Let's talk about I think I want to talk about the emotional side of money, right? Because there's a certain mindset that you have to be in when you start to consider investing or doing something with your money other than just trying to be in survival mode or pay bills. What's kind of the way that people should start to think about wealth holistically to be able to take that first step and actually open that account?
So there is a friend of mine who just wrote a book called Overcoming Financial Trauma. I've ordered it. It just came out. I haven't gotten it yet, so I haven't had a chance to read it
Ooh.
yet. But I thought that was such an interesting topic. Financial trauma, meaning the
Mhm.
things that we have experienced in our lives that create our mindset around money. And a lot of us have experienced financial trauma in some way, shape, or form. People who grew up poor, for example, may have one of two things. So, for one, some people end up with a scarcity mindset that they have to hold on to everything and hoard everything, and they become penny pinchers and they don't want to spend a dime because you never know when you're going to get money again. And then you have people who do the complete opposite, also from the scarcity mindset. As soon as they get money, they spend it because they never know when they're going to get money again. So
Mm.
one opportunity to buy something nice for myself, I'm just going to blow it all because I don't know when I'll have this opportunity again. That is financial trauma. For me, I said I grew up in a stable household. I never felt poor. My parents were, I'd say, fairly middle class, but I have been influenced by my parents' own scarcity mindsets because they both grew up poor as well. My dad was the hoarder. He was the penny pincher. He was the one who would not spend money on anything at all. My mom was the one who more looked for value. So she would buy the school shoes that's more expensive, but it's going to last for the whole year rather than buying the cheapest shoe there is. And so we need to examine some of those things that go into how we think about money. And I would recommend the book Overcoming Financial Trauma by Rakim Sabri. It's on Amazon now. I've already ordered
Right.
my copy. I've heard him talk about it so many times that I'm like, I'm very
Oh,
interested in this topic and learning more,
definitely, definitely.
yeah, about what our emotional triggers are around money that cause us to behave the way we do.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I don't think we talk about financial trauma enough. We know about, emotional trauma, but wrapping financial trauma into that, your mom that basically told you could, you just, we can't have toys here because we can't afford it. And you're a child, not, you don't even, see how that affected you growing up, right? But, in my case, I'd see my dad enjoy his guilty pleasures, and so all of those things I can see tied into my concept around money. And but I think the winning component there is what we going back to what we said. I don't get to put that trauma into my automation, automating
Mm.
where the money goes so that my my trauma doesn't have time to get, like, I don't give it time
Well,
to
first of
get
all, you have to be aware of it. So, one
right.
of the big emotional or financial traumas that I had to overcome was our upbringing in the church. So, I grew up Catholic. Catholic priests take a vow of poverty, and it is frowned upon to be greedy. You have to be
Mm,
satisfied with what you have. They always say money is the root of all evil and that
okay.
type of thing, right? And so I
Oh.
remember coming to Jamaica where the majority of people are not Catholic, they are more Pentecostal, and seeing pastors living lavish lifestyles and being
Mm,
shocked because I never experienced that in my upbringing, that you're not supposed to display wealth. Not only if you're somebody who's a member of the clergy, but in your everyday life, you're supposed to be, there's almost a mentality that you're supposed to stay poor because being poor is, somehow more virtuous than being wealthy or being greedy. They tend to equate being wealthy with being greedy, which isn't necessarily the case. And when you look at what it costs to live in today's society, you basically have to be wealthy to be comfortable.
Right.
And I've broken down this math many times, and it's in my book and in some of the talks that I give. People say, I don't want to be wealthy, I just want to be comfortable. And I say, okay, well, let's look at what it takes for you to be comfortable. First, you need shelter. So you need a stable home to live in that can withstand hurricanes and earthquakes, that's in a safe environment, especially here in Jamaica, which has traditionally had a problem with high crime. So you want to live in perhaps a gated community, a cement house, right? That is going to cost you a lot of money. You need transportation, you need education for your school, for your kids, a quality education for your kids. That is expensive. You need good health care. Insurance is expensive. You need, all of these things. And then you also need to be able to give back. You also want to be in a position to help your family and your friends who maybe they just lost their home in Hurricane Melissa and you were in Kingston and you weren't affected, but you have some money now that you can at least assist those people. So you want to be in a position where you can comfortably take care of all of those things. And when you add up all the money that it's going to take, basically, we looked at this, we've done this exercise, it puts you in the top 1% of income earners in Jamaica.
Isn't that crazy?
Top 1 to 2% of income earners in Jamaica, which means, relatively speaking, you're rich, but you don't feel rich because you're just comfortable. You're just
Right.
taking care of basic expenses, your mortgage, your car payment, gas, food. Food is extremely expensive now. Food never used to be so
Wild.
expensive. My goodness. And yeah, so just getting over those things that we were taught, those mindsets that we were taught, that somehow being wealthy is the same thing as being greedy. And being greedy is something to be frowned upon, that we must stay poor because that is more virtuous and more godlike. That's a form of financial trauma in itself.
That actually blew my mind. Again, we don't put that in the financial trauma bucket. That's just, we're good at taking what we've learned as children, and this is what it is, right? But the start of this conversation has been about, this isn't the same world that what our parents grew up in. This just isn't the same world. So we have to start to question and challenge and think through a lot of these fundamentals that, we grew up with, and whether it still applies today. Even when we think about what we do culturally and how we even earn, and going back to how we invest, it's all different mechanics or fundamentals. You hit an important topic in terms of like having that enough money to also help others, help family members who might be going through a crisis.
Right.
It's a very taboo topic. We hear it a lot because you give to family, potentially thinking it's a loan, or something that you're expecting in return. How does that play into how a family member can help or should help when it comes to building wealth or helping others think about wealth? Or, because you want everyone to win, and everyone can win, right? But we also have to be very careful on how we help to win.
So I always tell people, set aside a particular portion of your income towards giving, and giving can take many different forms. So giving can be tithing to your church. A lot of people do tithes. Giving can be helping out your mom. Your mom needs surgery and you want to be in a position to help her. Giving can be donating to charity. Giving can be, you set aside, you have the window wiper on your road who is there wiping your window every single day. It can be just, but set aside a specific amount of money for that purpose. Otherwise, you can end up getting caught in the cycle of too much giving that it ends up being detrimental to you. And I've had somebody in Money Mission community who had that problem. She was like, okay, she's making good money and her family knows that she's making good money. And so they come with the hands out all the time. And so what I told her to do is just create a separate bank account that is just for giving. So if it is that you want to take 10% of your income and put it in that bank account every month, and then when the money done from that account, it done. And if
Right.
they're still coming with hands out, you just be like, I'm sorry, I don't have any more money right now, but you can check me next month when I put money in that account again, and you
Mm-hmm.
still have an opportunity. So it's not a hard no, because it's hard to tell family no sometimes, but it's later when I have it. Otherwise, you run the risk of um, not being able to meet your own obligations and not being able to do the investments that are going to help you to help them later on.
Exactly. I like that. So, at the end of the day, it's again about having a plan about how you decide to help others, or help your family, or even give your tithes, right? Which is it's
Right.
really important. So, um, Kalila, you didn't grow up with this platform. You built Money Media. You wrote your book. You've become the go-to voice on wealth in the Caribbean. What mindset shifts did you have to make personally to move from a reporter to an entrepreneur to someone who believes that I can build wealth too?
Oh, the entrepreneurial mindset shift is a huge one. But that's not what I thought you were going to ask me. But that, listen, it took a lot of adjustments because I did not go into this intending to be an entrepreneur. I
No.
was quite happy with my day job. I was working on the radio. I was working the early morning shifts. I would work 5 a.m. to like 1 p.m., pick up
Mhm.
my kid from school at 2, and I have the rest of the day to myself. I used to go to sleep early because I have to be up at 4 to be at work for 5. And I did not expect to become an entrepreneur at all, but I was a financial journalist, or I came
Mhm.
to specialize in financial journalism because I originally started in just regular journalism, doing everything. And after coming to specialize in that, I realized there was a need for more of that in a more easy way that average people could understand. Because when I recognized the opportunity, I said 2015, 2018, we're in the number one stock exchange in the world, people earning returns 50%, 100%, 200% in months. I
Mhm.
realized that opportunity meant that there's going to be a lot of people who want to take that opportunity, but who don't understand that opportunity because the business news is reported in a way that you need an economics degree to understand. And so
Right.
I started doing it on social media in very simple language, and that eventually took off. Now, when that took off, there was a point in my career where I started earning more from that than I was earning from my day job. And my day job was preventing me from earning even more
Mm.
with my side hustle. And so I had to make a decision that, okay, I'm going to now pursue this full time. Now, when you start the entrepreneurial journey, you become used to doing everything yourself. You become the expert at everything in the business. You are the face of the business, you are the accountant, you are the marketer, you're running the social media, you're doing errands, you're doing sales, you're contacting clients, you're doing invoices, you're doing everything in the business.
Mhm.
So the biggest leap for me had to be learning to trust somebody else to handle other parts of the business so that I could focus in my zone of excellence, the zone where I thrive the most and where I can have the biggest impact. It was very, very hard for me to trust somebody else with that. So it was very, very hard for me to trust somebody else to take over a lot of the little everyday, day to day things while and allow me to focus on my zone of excellence, the things that are going to make the
Mhm.
biggest difference. And for me, that is being the face of the business and putting the information out there, content out there every day. So I don't even write most of my own scripts anymore. I have somebody else who does that. I don't run my social media anymore. Somebody else does that. I'm not reaching out to clients anymore. Somebody else does that. But that
Mhm.
first hire, that very first person, that was the biggest hurdle because you hire somebody and then you say, oh, they're doing it all wrong. And then you want to
Yeah.
fire them. Not realizing that you need to train them. It took you a while to learn the skills that you now have. And so
Exactly.
to invest some time. And it's those first 6 months are brutal because it's going to feel like you're doing double work because they're doing the work, you aren't satisfied with the way that they do the work, and so you go behind them and do the work over. And
Mm-hmm.
that can be brutal, but it is a necessary part of the process. Like you have to
Right.
train people who are going to work with you to do things to your standard and your liking so that you can eventually free up your time to do the higher order things that actually bring in the money.
Right. I like that. I mean, so, what I get from that is focus on your zone of excellence, right? There is your zone of excellence, which is the place where the high impact area. And then there is bringing in help, but also, taking that person with you, not expecting to hire the perfect, let's say, fit right away, but someone who's trainable, flexible, and able to kind of come with you on the journey that you're on, which I think sometimes we get very lost in. So let's talk about the age or the idea of being late, right? We hear a lot that if I didn't start in my 20s, it's over. What did you wish you knew about money at 25? And what do you want 25-year-olds listening to start to understand right now?
I absolutely wish I knew that this was accessible to me because I heard about these things when I was 25 years old, when I was in college, but I never thought that any of it applied to me. And so I went in one ear out the other because I thought this isn't for me. This isn't for my tax bracket. This isn't for somebody from Belize who doesn't even have a stock market. This is not applicable to me. And so I never paid attention the way I wish I did. I was in the United States at that age. I was going to college and I could have invested in the US stock market at that time. Imagine Facebook came out when I was in college in
That's
2004. Imagine if
crazy.
I was an
Yeah.
early investor in Facebook, right? Apple
Mm-hmm.
at the time was a burgeoning stock. Amazon, I remember buying my college textbooks on Amazon at the time when Amazon was primarily for selling books.
Right.
Now Amazon is for selling everything. Had I invested in Amazon, where would I be today? I probably wouldn't even be talking to you because I'd just be rolling in my dough, being happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I never thought that any of that applied to me, being from a third world country, not having money to begin with. I never thought that it was relevant to me. And had I known that I could have just taken my, you know, the little money that I had and started doing investing early, it would have been a complete game changer for where I am today. And the thing is, people always think that, oh, I'm too old to start. You're never too old because guess what? The 30-year-old wishes they started when they were 20, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
40-year-old wishes they started when they were 30. And the 50-year-old wishes they started when they were 40. And the 60-year-old wishes they started when they were 50. Either way, that's 10 years in the market that the, you could have
Could
had.
have. Yeah, exactly. So on the flip side, there's the 42-year-old, 55-year-old who does feel like they're behind. What does a realistic plan look like for someone who is in that age bracket? Is it the same, or is there some sort of I guess head start, so to speak?
It really depends on your circumstances because a 42-year-old can have vastly different circumstances. For example, my kids, I mentioned the two younger ones, 5 and 7. I have an older daughter who's 22. So at 42, you can either be finished with your child rearing age, your child rearing stage of your life, and
Mm-hmm.
you have grown kids, or you can just be getting started with your child raising years and have very young kids.
That's
It's a
true. That's
very tricky
true.
age to be at. Or
Mm-hmm.
you can be both like I am. I had my older one and then started all over again in my mid to late 30s, and that presents very different challenges depending on what stage you are in life. At 42, I'm 42 by the way, so I'm
Oh.
pleased that you chose that age. In your 40s, mid 40s, going into your 50s, a lot of people are a bit more advanced in their careers, but a lot of people are also going through transitions in their careers. So you might be going from, you've gained all this experience as a worker, the average age of a new entrepreneur is somewhere in their 40s. So a lot of people are going through career transitions and starting from scratch now. It may still be in your industry, so it's not scratch, but learning new skills as an entrepreneur requires a lot different mindset than it does as a as an employee, and not having the stable income as well, because now you're dealing with contracts and you're getting paid in a very lumpy way, and you have a 6 month contract and then you're not sure if you're going to get renewed, and you're not sure where the next client is going to come from, and hopefully that's going to pay for the next 6 months. And so they're completely different circumstances depending on what stage you are in your life and in your career, especially for women who tend to face the brunt of child rearing uh, stress and
Yeah.
time that it takes to raise our children. And I'm here dealing with homework in the evening, which means that I don't have the same amount of time that I would have before to try to work on my business. And it's just a completely different set of circumstances. So it's not one size fits all because of the age that you are. It really depends on what your circumstances are and how you are able to make that investment and put money aside. So even if it is that you're not earning a consistent income, like you may have just started on the entrepreneurship journey, still, if you're going to do the 10%, commit to the 10%. Every time you get a payment from a client, take 10% of it, put it into your investment account.
You hit on some real stuff, right? I think, especially for this audience, because we're talking about transitions. We're talking about this part of our life where, kids are kind of at a very moldable point, right? So you definitely need to be there and want to be there to make sure that, they've got the solid foundation, especially millennials. Like we're taking parenting to a whole new level. Like they are going to the best of the best schools, and they got the best of the best everything, so that focus is there.
And they
You
get
know,
picked up from school and dropped off.
picked up and dropped off, and they're tracked with air tags. It's a whole thing, right?
We used to walk to school.
I love the joke. Our parents definitely didn't know where we were on Sundays from like 1 to 5 to dinner time. We were just on our bikes on the street, and so and we're living in uncharted territory. And so I think the rules for and this is why this podcast even exists, right? Because the rules for money, the rules for happiness and fulfillment, the rules for how we create our own spaces and our own livelihoods has changed, right? It's a whole different world. And so we can't sit here and think that we're going to be living by the same playbook, right? And to be honest, thinking that people can put us in a box and put us in some sort of molds that we're supposed to stay in. And I think that's probably the most detrimental thing that could happen to our generation, is that we think that we are going to stick in this mold. And bringing awareness to that, I think, is extremely important for all of us who are now kind of getting to that age bracket where we should be caring less about what people, what people think about us and what box you've put there for us, but more about, approaching the second half of my life, potentially the last half, and it's got to matter. It's really got to matter, and I've got to, take it and run with it. So we need all the knowledge and awareness that we can towards it, in relation to all of these topics, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
So Kalila, this has been extremely rich, and I mean to use that word. You've given us a lot to think about, and more importantly, a lot to do. So before we close, I want to leave everyone, as always, with an affirmation. And this one's a money affirmation. So I think everyone will love this, and something to be inspired by, especially for those who have started without necessarily a safety net, who are in recovery, and who are people who are rebuilding their lives. So today's affirmation is that I'm not defined by where I started or what I survived. I am allowed to build wealth, even if no one in my family has done it before. Every small step I take, paying attention, planning, saving, investing, is an act of healing and legacy. I am worthy of stability. I am worthy of overflow. I am building something that will outlive my storms. And that is our affirmation of the episode. Kalila, for anyone who wants to go deeper with you after this, can you tell us where to find you, where to get Money Mission Workbook, and tap into your courses and content?
So I'll make it very easy for you. Go to moneymissionja.com. Everything is there, so you can get the book there. It's available on Amazon. Here in Jamaica, you can get it on Seven Crave Marketplace or at Fontana Pharmacy. But all the links are at moneymissionja.com, so you can get the book, you can get the courses. And the course, by the way, there's a lot of the same information in the book, but it's a different format. So it's video lessons, it's interactive quizzes. It's, if you're not a reader, the course might be for you. So moneymissionja.com. On the content side, the media side, I'm all over social media at kalila.money, or you can find my content at moneymediaja.com. And if you'd like to book me to speak at an event, KalilahReynolds.com is the place to be. But any of those three websites, they all link to each other. So you'll find everything there.
Perfect. Awesome. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on such an important topic. I think we've covered some really incredible things that we need to now think about, like reflect on and really understand especially on the financial trauma side, if we can bring awareness to any financial trauma that we have, and then be able to put a plan in place in order to overcome that or to get around that as you continue to heal. So thank you everyone for watching this episode of the Dope Living Podcast. As always, we're here to ensure that we are rewriting the rules of success for the modern world. And I will see you next time. Bye. That's another episode of Dope Living in the books. If this conversation sparks something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, screenshot it, tell someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast and follow at Dope Living for daily inspiration. Whether you're building businesses, advancing your career, or simply designing a life that's more intentional, keep dreaming, keep doing, and keep creating success that makes people go, damn, that's dope. Until next time, dreamers and doers.